Hello, welcome again to yet another Yellow Road Thinking podcast with me, Gabriel. Wow, it's been a very interesting last few days. Again, I'm not going to use this platform as a political thing. I don't believe in that. And if anything, I believe those kind of conversations are best face to face, so you can read their body language and you can hear out a person's opinion and views. So that's not for now. But the attempt assassination that happened on Saturday triggered me thinking again. I got to articulate this properly. That it's not taking out contents. It made me think about what I've been believing and saying to clients, to myself over the years, of how fragile life is. So that's why I want to kind of talk about for the next certain amount of time how fragile life is. And the reason why I want to say this is for two things that happened then, plus the assassination incident. I'm thankful for those people who watch these podcasts and share them. And I appreciate those people who give me feedback, both constructively and at the same time thanking me, which is great for my ego, which is a healthy, good thing. I got an email from someone who said, "I loved your last podcast on TikTok about time. I think you should do one on those people who work from home." So I said to the person, I said, "Interesting, let me think about it." But I still believe the same concept of at home is the same concept as everything else I said in that podcast. But that was something that happened. And then I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who basically told me that they'd lived in New York for 13 years, and no, longer than that. And they've been married for almost 20 years, so it must be longer than that. Anyway, they basically said that they text me and said that they just took for the first time. They've lived in New York. They went out with their husband on a date and crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. Apparently, you can walk across it. So me and my curiosity and my relationship with this person, I turned around and said, "Seriously? It took you such a long time to see what's around you?" And she turned around to me and said, "Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much to do that's around me." So those two stories, then the assassination got me thinking. I remember years ago I wrote an article called "Keep Taking the Pictures," and the gist of the article I wrote was one of the most meaningful things I have in my house is my photographs. Remember the old days we used to take from a film and process it and put it in a photo album? Is I lived in that generation. I know I don't look it, but I'm from a different generation. Anyway, so one of the greatest things is as I look every so often, I just take out the photo album and I just look at the things that I've seen and done and people I met and keep in contact with. And I see how I've evolved, not in fashion, not just in as you get older, you look differently. It's a game we used to play. I play with my kids. When I bring it out, it's well, "Wow, you look so different," or "Wow, you were wearing that." And I still do the same thing today on my phone. Every so often, I stop and I go back. I go back and see pictures of my children when they were younger and how beautiful they are and how beautiful they are now. I look back at trips that we've taken as a family, as a couple with my wife. I do. Every so often I just stop and I look back and go, "Wow, life is amazing. Life is incredible. Look what I did. Look what I've seen. What have I experienced?" And you see a picture of a friend and you go, "Wow," and it takes you off on a tangent of what the relationship is between that person. So that's what the gist of my article was, is that keep taking the pictures. But don't just take the pictures for the sake of just taking the pictures. Take the pictures so you can look back and appreciate how fast life is and what you've achieved and what you can achieve and what your dreams were, and you achieved your dreams. So all these three incidents I was thinking about the last few days, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is that my friend over there who said for the last 20 odd years lived in a place and they never even appreciated the things that are around them. And then when this subscriber, who actually I know, and I thank them again for asking me to tell them how do you deal with time at home, and then with this assassination of, like, literally life could have ended just like that, and unfortunately one did. But what happens is that I don't care whether you're working at home or whether you live in a place where there's so much around you to experience and to see, and that's right on your doorstep, or whether it's your own family that you don't even appreciate the journey you've been on. It's right in front of you. And sometimes we lose that ability to realize that life is so beautiful and so fragile and so fleeting and so incredibly unappreciative, that why do we need an unfortunate tragedy to reawaken us? I remember I lived in New York the time of September 11th. And there were so many commentators and people that first night when they came home, they went in and they just gave their wife, their husband, their children, their parents a hug and held them tight. Because everybody at that moment in time realized how fragile life was and how life can be taken away just like that. Life is fleeting. It's like, a passing thunderstorm. It pours rain and it makes a noise and it hides the sun, and people think, oh my gosh, it's so dark and terrible, but they don't realize the sun is still there. It's just hidden. It's a passing storm. And as human beings, we are full of paradoxes. We talked about this before, but sometimes when we're dark and we don't see it, we don't always appreciate that the sun is still shining. Meaning, not just the sun physically shining, but sometimes we don't appreciate, again, this is my message I've been saying, and I will continue to say, that we don't appreciate our own beauty, our own soul, our own qualities, our own skills and abilities. And we are here to make the world a better place. And we can do it, but we sometimes, through many different reasons that we don't discuss now, legitimate and illegitimate, we don't always appreciate. And only when it's sometimes too late do we get depressed of, oh my gosh, I could have, would have, should have, known of. Why don't we just look at our life? Again, I keep saying this as fleeting. Why do we have to wait for a bullet for us to wake up? We looking at my notes, and again, a lot of this stuff I write down, but it's sometimes I know the answers. I know what the words to say. I know that but just trying to figure out how to say it in an eloquent way that people will appreciate it and not internalize it in a skew-if way. Because people like that. If we were honest enough with ourselves and we said to ourselves, what are we living for in our life? What's important in our life? What's real? And we can explain it in a way that's real because X, Y, and Z. Right? The person you married, do you appreciate them? Yes, we take people for granted because that's natural. But every so often, take a reality check. Look at your spouse, your children, yourself, and say, whoa, I love that person. I got married to that person because they do X, Y, and Z to me in a positive, constructive way. Look what we've achieved together. I couldn't have got through that if I didn't have someone next to me supporting and loving and giving me validation. Again, life is so fleeting, but yet it's so beautiful. It's so incredible. I'm not saying it's easy, but sometimes when it's tough and it's hard, it's meaningful. You know, for example, now it's summertime. Even if you work 9 to 5, there's enough lights. You can sit outside and appreciate the sunsets. You know, I have a fire pit outside, and one of the most beautiful things I do is I sit outside with my wife and my kids, and we just sit, roast marshmallows, you know, have a cold beer, and just sit and talk, put on music, you know, discuss, just enjoy each other's company. It's sometimes the most therapeutically beautiful experience, and it's also a bonding experience. It shows family unity. It shows, you know, the power and the beauty of each other. There's nothing as beautiful as seeing your kids smile and laugh and sing and just look in your eyes and your wife and go, this is beautiful. Why do we have to have an excuse to say to someone, I love you? Why do you have to have an excuse not to just give someone a hug, to give them a nice word? Why do you have to wait for an excuse to realize how incredible you are and what you've experienced in life and the things you've seen and the dreams that you haven't lived out? Or why don't you just suddenly stop and go, okay, Gavi, look what you've achieved in your life. It may not be exactly what everyone else, but who cares? You know, how many people turn around and say, thankful I am living in freedom, thankful I have running water, thankful I have clothing that is appropriate for the summer and the cold, and I have a car and you know, I can go fill it with gas, or I can go to a supermarket and I can buy the essentials, but I can buy so much more that I probably don't need, but thank God. It's small things. You know, we have phones. Pick up the phone and phone your parents and say, you know, I may not like you, but thank you for giving me life. Or you haven't spoken to someone in a while, just phone up and say, hey, I just thought about you. And I just want to thank you for, you know, the fun we had traveling around X, Y, and Z. Or thank you for just being part of my life and helping me out in a hard time. Again, so this story just came to me. There was a prisoner who tells a story when he was in Russia in the gulags. Again, that's a podcast in itself. But anyway, he talks about that at the end of the day, when you know the hard labor and the cold and the discomfort and the unvalidation of these prisoners, you know, when they went to bed at night, they went to bed. It was their hiding place. They just kind of get away from their reality. Anyway, so he writes there that he was in a barracks of many different nationalities that they was regarded as the enemy of the state. And one night he noticed one of the guys from across the barracks suddenly get up in the middle of the night, go to, I guess, his cupboard, suddenly change his clothes and point left, right, there. And he's fascinated that this happened every single night around midnight. Anyway, after a while, this prisoner went up to the other prisoners and said, tell me, what were you doing at midnight? And at first the guy was like embarrassed to say. And again, eventually, you know, he said he wouldn't tell anybody. And he was just curious because, you know, this wasn't the norm. So the prisoner agreed, and he turned around and said, I used to be a general in the army from where I was beforehand, and I had the power of thousands of men. And now I am crushed. I am exhausted. I'm tried being destroyed by this state. And the only thing that keeps me going is I remember of what I was and the validation it gives me the self-esteem, the ray of hope. I may be crushed, I may be exhausted, I may be they're trying to kill me here, but at least I know who I am. At that moment, when I put it on for 2 minutes, I remember I was a general. And it gives me that hope. So the other prisoner says later on in life, he says he was such a poignant moment in his life. He said, okay, this guy was a general, but I'm also a general. I'm an amazing person. I may be constricted and being bashed and bruised and you know what they do, but he made such an incredible and poignant impression on this guy that he looked at his own life, and eventually he is released and he went on to do great things. I'm not saying that everyone has to go to prison to have an experience like this, but the idea is the same. If we look at ourselves and realize that life is fleeting, but we are a general. We're a general of dreams. We're a general of skills. We're a general of have the ability to love and create and make the world a better place. It's the same thing as just looking at those pictures. Look at your pictures. Keep taking the pictures, everybody. But look at it in a constructive, beautiful, meaningful, appreciative way of what life has given us, what life can achieve, and what's important. Again, life is tough. Life is not fair at times, but life is beautiful. If we honestly turn around, why do we have to wait till we're old and cranky and not to appreciate our children, not to appreciate our spouse, not to appreciate what we've given, what we don't even realize we're given? Again, I've spoken on this before. You don't realize the power of a smile, a hug, a genuine validation. Good morning. It's a terrible thing that the world is at the moment in time, that we almost watch someone else blow someone else's brains out. The moment by the guidance of God that a person was saved. Unfortunately, someone else lost. But it should resonate within each and every one of us, the fragility of life. And if life is so fragile, that means it must be worth something. If we're here for 70, 80, 90 years or less, it means that we have the ability to embrace it, make something of it, try to make it somewhat meaningful. So again, I bless each and every one of us that we should have the strength and the courage to keep taking the pictures, but don't just take the pictures to be part of our phone as an experience. Take the pictures so we can suddenly stop every so often and realize how beautiful, amazing we have in our life. Let us open up our eyes like my friend of mine who lived in Brooklyn and realized, wow, I've been here for such a long time. I didn't realize there was a bridge that I could just walk and spend some time with my husband and bond and just make it meaningful. So, all my dear friends out there, please inspire others. Share this with others, but keep taking the pictures. Keep reviewing. Keep understanding that life is so beautiful, but yet so fragile and passing, that hopefully that we can inspire ourselves to greater things. We can inspire others people to greater things, to appreciate what's around us and understand how rich we truly are. Okay, so until next time, I thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for being alive. God bless. Until next time.